My name is Joel, and I'm a physician. I've been practicing obstetrics and gynecology for 15 years now. I've delivered hundreds of babies, helped countless families through some of the most important moments of their lives. People trust me with their health, their fears, their hopes. But 8 years ago, I learned that trust can be the most dangerous thing you give someone. I met my wife, Catherine, in college. We were both pre med students, young and ambitious, dreaming about our futures. She was brilliant, one of the smartest people I'd ever met. When I went to medical school, she went to pharmacy school. It seemed like a perfect match. We got married young, right after I finished my residency. Her father owned a medical building, downtown, a beautiful 5-story structure in a good neighborhood. When I opened my obstetrics practice, he offered me space on the fourth floor at a very reasonable rate. Catherine opened a pharmacy on the first floor. It was the American dream, really. A husband and wife team, both healthcare professionals working in the same building. My patients would see me upstairs, then go downstairs to fill their prescriptions at Catherine's pharmacy. It was efficient, convenient, and profitable. We had a 6-year-old son, Daniel. He was a bright, happy kid, always asking questions, always curious about everything. Catherine had been a devoted mother when he was younger, but as he got older and more independent, she seemed to pull away a bit. I figured it was normal. She was busy with the pharmacy, I was busy with my practice. We were building our lives, our careers. That's what you do in your 30s, right? But then things started to change. It was subtle at first. Catherine, who used to meet me in the parking garage every morning, so we could walk into the building together, suddenly wanted to drive separately. I have errands to run after work, she'd say. Or I need to leave earlier than you. It seemed reasonable enough. Then she started paying more attention to her appearance. Now, don't get me wrong. Catherine had always been attractive, always took care of herself. But this was different. Designer clothes appeared in her closet, expensive things I didn't remember her buying. She started going to high-end salons, coming home with elaborate hairstyles that must have cost hundreds of dollars. She wore more makeup, heavier perfume. You look nice, I'd tell her. Thanks, she'd say, barely looking up from her phone. Her phone. That became another thing. She was constantly on it, texting, scrolling, always tilting the screen away from me when I got close. When I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd get defensive. Just work stuff, she'd snap. Why are you so nosy? I wasn't trying to be nosy. I was just curious. When you've been married for 10 years, you notice changes in your spouse's behavior. And Catherine was definitely changing. The biggest change, though, was the emergency calls. I'm an obstetrician, so yes, I get emergency calls. Babies don't wait for convenient hours. But I work in a group practice with 4 other doctors. We rotate on-call duties. I'm not the only doctor available. Yet suddenly I was getting called in at 2, 3 in the morning, several times a week. Doctor, we have a patient in active labor. Water just broke. She's asking for you specifically. Or doctor, we have a complication with one of your patients. We need you here right away. I'd drag myself out of bed, throw on my clothes, and rush to the hospital. Catherine barely stirred. Another emergency, she'd mumble, rolling over. No concern in her voice. No worry. Just nothing. At the hospital, I'd find the patient, handle the situation, which was often not as urgent as I'd been told, and then drive home exhausted. Sometimes I wouldn't get back until dawn. I'd shower, change, and head straight to the office for a full day of appointments. It was wearing me down. I was exhausted all the time, running on coffee and adrenaline. I started making mistakes, small ones. Nothing that hurt anyone, but mistakes nonetheless. Forgetting to return phone calls. Mixing up appointment times. One day I almost prescribed the wrong dosage of medication. Caught it at the last second, thank God, but it scared me. You need to slow down, my nurse told me. You look terrible, doctor. I know, I said. I'm just tired. All these emergency calls. That's strange, she said, frowning. You've been on call way more than the rotation schedule says you should be. Want me to check with the answering service? No, it's fine, I said quickly. I didn't want to make waves. Didn't want to seem like I was complaining. We all have hard weeks, right? But then Catherine started asking about divorce. It came out of nowhere one evening. We were having dinner, a rare occasion when we were both home at the same time. Daniel was at his grandmother's house for the weekend. Joel, Catherine said, pushing her food around her plate, have you ever thought about divorce? I almost choked on my water. What? Where's this coming from? I'm just asking theoretically. Have you ever thought about it? No, I said firmly. We're married. We have a son. We have a life together. Why would I think about divorce? She shrugged. People grow apart sometimes. It's natural. Are you saying you want a divorce? I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking a question. But the question hung in the air between us like poison gas. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Why would she ask that? What did it mean? I started watching her more carefully, noticing things. She was always texting someone, smiling at her phone in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. She'd take phone calls in the other room, speaking in low voices I couldn't hear. When I'd walk in, she'd quickly end the conversation. I have to go. Talk to you later. I confronted her one night. Catherine, what's going on? Are you seeing someone else? She looked at me like I'd slapped her. Excuse me. Are you accusing me of having an affair? I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm asking. You're acting strange. You're distant. You asked me about divorce. What am I supposed to think? You're paranoid, she said coldly. I'm working hard at the pharmacy, trying to build my business, and you're creating drama where there is none. Maybe you're the one with the problem, Joel. Maybe you're projecting your own guilt onto me. My guilt? What are you talking about? All these late-night emergency calls. All these hours at the hospital. How do I know you're really at the hospital? How do I know you're not with someone else? I was stunned. Are you serious right now? I'm an obstetrician. I deliver babies. That's my job. Sure, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. That's what you say. But how do I really know? You could be anywhere. With anyone. She was gaslighting me, taking my legitimate concerns and turning them around, making me the bad guy, making me question my own reality. That's when I knew. Something was very, very wrong. I lay awake that night, Catherine sleeping peacefully beside me, and I made a decision. I needed to know the truth. I needed to understand what was happening to my marriage, to my family, to my life. But I never imagined how dark that truth would turn out to be. The next few weeks were torture. I watched my wife like a hawk, looking for any sign, any clue that would confirm or deny my suspicions. But Catherine was careful. Too careful. She went to work, came home, took care of Daniel, made dinner. On the surface, everything looked normal. But underneath, I could feel the distance between us growing wider every day. I started getting more emergency calls, sometimes 3 or 4 a week. I'd stumble home exhausted at 5 or 6 in the morning, barely able to keep my eyes open. Catherine would already be awake, getting ready for work, acting like nothing was unusual. Rough night, she'd ask, not really interested in the answer. Yeah, I'd say. Another complicated delivery. She'd reply, applying her lipstick in the mirror. Expensive lipstick. When did she start wearing lipstick to work at the pharmacy? One Thursday, I had the day off. My rotation schedule showed I wasn't on call, wasn't needed at the office. I was looking forward to spending time with Daniel, maybe taking him to the park, being a normal dad for once. But at 11 that morning, my phone rang. The answering service. Doctor, we have a patient at the hospital. Severe morning sickness. She's asking for you specifically. Can you come in? I sighed. So much for my day off. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When I arrived at the hospital, the nurses looked confused. Doctor, what are you doing here? You're not on call today. I got a call from the answering service. Patient with severe morning sickness? They checked their charts, shook their heads. We don't have anyone admitted with morning sickness right now. All our patients are either in labor or postpartum. Are you sure you got the right hospital? A cold feeling crept up my spine. Yeah, I'm sure. This is where I was told to come. I called the answering service back. I'm at the hospital. There's no patient here. What's going on? The operator sounded confused. Doctor, I'm looking at the log. Yes, we received a call from someone identifying herself as a nurse from the labor and delivery unit. She said you needed to come in right away. Did you verify it was actually from the hospital? Pause. Well, the caller ID showed a number from the hospital, so we assumed. What was the name of the nurse who called? Let me check. She identified herself as Jennifer. Jennifer, one of my regular nurses. But Jennifer was standing right in front of me at the nurse's station, and she looked just as confused as I felt. Jennifer, I said, hanging up the phone, did you call the answering service this morning? No, doctor. I've been here since 7, but I didn't call about any patient. Someone had impersonated a nurse. Someone had used the hospital's phone number or spoofed it to make it look like the call was legitimate. Someone wanted me out of the house on my day off. Someone wanted me away from home. My hands started shaking. I got back in my car and drove home as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest. What would I find? Was Catherine there? Was she with someone? I burst through the front door. Catherine! No answer. The house was empty. Catherine's car was gone from the garage. I called her cell phone. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I called the pharmacy. Is Catherine there? No, doctor, the young pharmacy tech said. She called in sick today. Said she had a migraine and needed to rest at home. But she wasn't home. I sat down on the couch, my mind racing. Where was she? Who had called the answering service? What the hell was going on? I waited for 2 hours. Finally, around 2 in the afternoon, I heard the garage door open. Catherine's car. I stayed on the couch trying to look casual, like I'd just been relaxing at home. She walked in, stopped short when she saw me. Joel? What are you doing home? I thought you had to go to the hospital. I did, I said slowly. Turned out to be a false alarm. No patient. Funny thing, though, the pharmacy said you called in sick. But you don't look sick to me. Where were you? Her face went pale for just a second, then she recovered. I wasn't feeling well this morning, so I called in. But then I started feeling better, so I went to run some errands. Grocery store, dry cleaners, you know. Why are you interrogating me? I'm not interrogating you. I'm just asking where you were. And I told you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have things to do. She brushed past me, heading upstairs. I sat there knowing she was lying, but not knowing how to prove it. That's when I realized I couldn't do this alone. I needed help. I needed to know the truth, whatever it was, wherever it led. But I never imagined it would lead where it did. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Catherine, listening to her breathe, wondering who she really was. The woman I'd married or someone else entirely, a stranger wearing my wife's face? The next morning, I made a decision. I needed evidence. Real, concrete evidence of what was happening. I couldn't rely on gut feelings and suspicions anymore. I started by checking our credit card statements, something I should have been doing all along. But I'd always trusted Catherine to handle the finances. She was good with numbers, organized, detail-oriented. Or so I thought. What I found shocked me. Charges at expensive restaurants I'd never been to. Charges at luxury hotels in the city. Charges at high-end boutiques and spas. Thousands and thousands of dollars spread out over the past year. I confronted her that evening. Catherine, what are these charges? This restaurant bill for $300? This hotel charge for $500? She barely glanced at the statement. Business expenses. Client meetings. Pharmaceutical rep dinners. You know how it is. You're a pharmacist, not a pharmaceutical rep. Why would you need to wine and dine clients at expensive restaurants? You don't understand how business works, Joel. I'm trying to build relationships, expand the pharmacy's reach. It takes money to make money. And the hotels? Conferences, continuing education seminars. I told you about those. But she hadn't told me about any conferences or seminars. I would have remembered. Show me the conference materials, I said. Registration confirmations. Certificates. Anything. She gave me a cold look. Are you seriously asking me to prove to you that I'm doing my job? What is wrong with you, Joel? Why have you become so suspicious and controlling? There it was again. Gaslighting, making me feel like the unreasonable one, like I was the problem. But I wasn't going to back down this time. I'm not being controlling. I'm trying to understand why we're spending thousands of dollars on expenses I don't know anything about. We're supposed to be partners, Catherine. We're supposed to make financial decisions together. Fine, she said, standing up abruptly. You want to control the money? Go ahead. Take over the finances. See how much work it is. See how stressful it is to manage everything while you're off playing hero at the hospital all night. She stormed out of the room, leaving me sitting there with the credit card statements spread out in front of me. Over the next few weeks, I dove deeper into our finances. What I found was even worse than I'd imagined. Catherine had opened credit cards I didn't know about, not joint accounts just in her name. But because we were married and filed taxes jointly, the credit checks had used my income too. She'd racked up almost $50,000 in debt on these hidden cards. $50,000. On what? I went through every statement I could find, tracking every charge. Some were obvious clothes, jewelry, spa treatments, expensive dinners. But some charges were more mysterious. Monthly payments to a property management company. Fees for something called luxury services. Charges at hotels, always during the day, always in the middle of the week when she should have been at the pharmacy. I felt sick. The evidence was mounting, but I still didn't have the full picture. I needed to know who she was with, where she was going, what she was really doing. Before we continue with my story, if you're finding this account helpful or interesting, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I started tracking her. Not in person, I didn't have time for that with my medical practice and taking care of Daniel. But I used technology. I added a location sharing app to her phone, told her it was for safety reasons. In case anything happens, I can find you, I said. She rolled her eyes but agreed. I also started documenting everything. Took photos of credit card statements, saved screenshots of suspicious charges, kept a log of every time I got called to the hospital in the middle of the night, every time Catherine came home late, every inconsistency in her stories. And I started paying attention to patterns. Catherine would text constantly on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. She'd take long lunch breaks on Wednesdays. She'd leave work early on Fridays, claiming she had to pick up Daniel from school, but Daniel took the bus home. I checked. One Wednesday, I decided to follow her during my lunch break. I told my office staff I was running errands, then drove to the medical building where our offices were located. At 12:30, Catherine left the pharmacy. She got in her car and drove toward downtown. I followed at a distance, my hands sweating on the steering wheel. I felt ridiculous, like a character in a bad TV movie, but I had to know. She pulled into the parking garage of an upscale hotel, the kind of place where rooms cost $400 a night. I watched her walk into the lobby, looking around nervously, then disappear into an elevator. I sat in my car for a moment, heart pounding. Should I go in, confront her? But confront her about what exactly? Maybe she really was meeting a client. Maybe this was legitimate. No, I knew it wasn't. I could feel it in my gut. I went into the hotel lobby, trying to look casual. The elevator directory showed floors 210 were guest rooms. Floors 11-12 were conference rooms and event spaces. If Catherine was here for a business meeting, she'd be on 11 or 12. But I had a sinking feeling she wasn't on the conference floors. I waited in the lobby, pretending to look at my phone, watching the elevator. An hour passed, then another. Finally, at 2:45, the elevator doors opened and Catherine stepped out. But she wasn't alone. She was with a young man, tall, handsome, probably in his mid-20s. He was laughing at something she'd said, his hand resting casually on the small of her back. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I ducked behind a column, watching them. They walked through the lobby together, still talking, still laughing. At the valet station, they hugged a long, intimate hug that was definitely not professional. Then they separated. The young man got into a sports car, expensive, flashy. Catherine got into her own car and drove away. I stood there in the hotel lobby shaking. My worst fears confirmed. My wife was having an affair, but I still didn't have proof. Not real proof. Not the kind that would hold up in court. A hug in a hotel lobby wasn't enough. I needed more. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched and documented everything. The location sharing app showed Catherine making regular trips to that same hotel on Wednesday afternoons. It also showed visits to a condo in an upscale neighborhood across town, always on Thursday evenings, always for 2 or 3 hours. I drove by the condo one evening. Nice building, expensive, way beyond what a 20 something could normally afford, unless someone was helping him pay for it. I looked up the property records online. The condo was owned by Catherine's sister, Karen, but I'd bet money Karen wasn't the one living there. Everything started falling into place. The hidden credit cards, the luxury hotel visits, the property management fees probably for that condo. Catherine was bankrolling this young man's lifestyle. Our money, my money, was going to support her affair. But why? Why would she do this? We had a good life. A good marriage, or so I'd thought. A son who needed both his parents. What could this kid possibly offer her that I couldn't? I got my answer one night when I finally hacked into Catherine's email. I know it was wrong. Invasion of privacy. But at that point, I was beyond caring about privacy. I needed the truth. The emails between Catherine and this man, his name was Marcus, I learned were disturbing. Not just because they were clearly romantic, clearly sexual, but because of what they revealed about Catherine's feelings toward me, toward Daniel, toward our life together. I can't stand being married to him anymore, she wrote. He's so boring, so predictable. All he cares about is work and Daniel. He has no passion, no excitement. You make me feel alive again. You make me feel young. Marcus replied, then leave him. Divorce him. We can be together for real. I can't yet, Catherine wrote back. The timing isn't right. I need to set things up first. Make sure I get what I'm entitled to. The building, the pharmacy, everything. Give me a few more months. My blood ran cold. She wasn't just having an affair. She was planning to divorce me and take everything. The medical building, the pharmacy, probably our house too. She was strategizing, plotting, using me until she had everything in place. And then I found the most disturbing email of all. What about Daniel? Marcus had written. Catherine's response, you can have kids with whoever you want when you're with them. I never wanted to be a mother anyway. My father pressured me into having Daniel to make Joel happy, to tie us together. But I've done my time. When this is over, Joel can have full custody. I don't want the kid. I had to read it 3 times before it sank in. My wife didn't want our son, had never wanted him. Thought of motherhood as doing her time. Like Daniel was a prison sentence she'd served and now wanted to be released from. I thought about all the times Catherine had snapped at Daniel for being too loud, too messy, too needy. The times she'd pawned him off on her parents or mine so she could have a break. The way she'd seemed annoyed by his very existence. I'd told myself it was just stress, just the challenges of parenting. But no, she genuinely didn't want to be his mother. That hurt worse than the affair. Worse than the lies. Worse than anything. My son deserved better. He deserved a mother who loved him, who wanted him, who saw him as a blessing instead of a burden. And I was going to make sure he got the life he deserved, even if that meant ending my marriage and exposing every one of Catherine's lies. But first, I needed to understand the full scope of her deception, because I had a feeling there was more. Much more. After discovering those emails, I couldn't look at Catherine the same way. Every time she smiled at me, I saw the lie behind it. Every time she kissed Daniel goodnight, I knew she was counting down the days until she could walk away from him forever. But I kept up the pretense. I played the role of the oblivious husband, going to work, coming home, acting normal, because I needed more information. I needed to understand the full extent of what she'd done. The emergency calls to the hospital, I'd figured out that scam. Catherine had someone calling the answering service, pretending to be a nurse, getting me out of the house so she could meet with Marcus. Sometimes she'd bring him to our house. Our house. The thought made me sick. But who was making those calls? It had to be someone Catherine trusted, someone willing to participate in this elaborate deception. I got my answer when I showed up at the pharmacy unannounced one afternoon. Catherine looked surprised to see me. Joel, what are you doing here? Just wanted to see if you wanted to grab lunch, I said casually. It's been a while since we spent time together. She glanced nervously at her young assistant, Emily, a woman in her early 20s, who'd been working there for about a year. Oh, I can't today. Too busy. Maybe another time. But I noticed Emily's reaction. She looked down quickly, busying herself with paperwork, her face flushed. Emily. She was the one making the calls. She had to be. Young, clearly devoted to Catherine, eager to please. The perfect accomplice. I filed that information away for later. Over the next few weeks, I pieced together the full picture of Catherine's double life. And it was worse than I'd imagined. The condo where Marcus lived, Catherine was paying for it. Not just the rent, everything. His car lease, his credit cards, his entire lifestyle. I found statements showing she'd been giving him thousands of dollars a month for over a year. Where was all this money coming from? Not from the pharmacy alone. I dug deeper into our finances and discovered something shocking. Catherine had been skimming from the pharmacy. Not in any obvious way, she was too smart for that. But she'd been inflating orders for expensive medications, then selling the excess inventory to sketchy wholesalers for cash. She'd been billing insurance companies for medications that were never actually dispensed. Small amounts here and there, but over time, it added up to tens of thousands of dollars. It was insurance fraud. It was theft. It was illegal. And if I reported it, Catherine would go to jail. The pharmacy would be shut down. The scandal would destroy my reputation by association, even though I'd had nothing to do with it. She'd set it up perfectly. If I exposed her, we'd both go down. Our son would have both parents disgraced, possibly both parents in legal trouble. She was holding our entire family hostage to protect her affair. I felt trapped. What could I do? If I confronted her, she'd deny everything, gaslight me more, maybe even turn the tables and accuse me of being the one having an affair. If I went to the authorities, I'd be destroying my own life too. So I did something I'm not proud of. I started building a defense. I went to see a lawyer, a good one, recommended by a colleague who'd gone through a nasty divorce. I explained the situation, showed him the evidence I'd collected. This is bad, he said, looking through the documents. The fraud alone could send her to prison. But here's the thing, you're married to her. Financially, you could be held liable too, even if you didn't know about it. Especially since some of this was done through the pharmacy, which operates in a building owned by her father. So what do? You need to protect yourself. First, separate your finances immediately. Open your own bank account. Transfer your portion of any joint assets. Second, document everything, and I mean everything. Every suspicious charge, every inconsistency, every lie. Third, find out who else knows about this. Her accomplices. Get them on record if you can. What about my son? The lawyer's expression softened. That's the priority. The courts will always favor the parent who provides a stable, loving home. Based on what you've told me, that's you, not her. But we need to show she's an unfit mother. Do you have evidence of neglect? I thought about all the times Catherine had ignored Daniel, dismissed him, treated him like an inconvenience. But I didn't have proof. No photos, no recordings, nothing concrete. I'll get it, I said. Over the next month, I became a man obsessed. I documented everything. I recorded conversations with Catherine where she'd make dismissive comments about Daniel. I took photos of her credit card statements, her emails, everything. I got statements from Daniel's school showing that I was always the one attending parent-teacher conferences, always the one volunteering for field trips, always the one picking him up when he was sick. I even got a sworn statement from my mother, who'd been helping with childcare. She described in painful detail how Catherine would drop Daniel off and disappear for hours, sometimes overnight, with no explanation. How Daniel would cry for his mother and Catherine wouldn't even call to check on him. Building this case was the hardest thing I've ever done. Every piece of evidence was another knife in my heart, another confirmation that the woman I'd loved, the woman I'd built a life with, was not who I thought she was. But then something happened that changed everything. I was at the hospital late one Thursday night, a real emergency this time, a patient with complications. It was around 11 p.m. when I finished and headed home. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed lights on upstairs. Catherine's car was in the garage. Good, she was home. Maybe tonight we could actually talk, have a civil conversation about our marriage, about what was going wrong. But as I opened the front door, I heard something that stopped me cold. Laughter, a man's laughter, coming from upstairs, from our bedroom. My heart started pounding. Surely not. Surely Catherine wouldn't be that bold, that stupid, to bring him into our home when I could come back any minute. I walked quietly up the stairs. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I could see shadows moving inside, could hear voices. "We don't have much time," Marcus was saying. "He could come back any minute." "Relax," Catherine said. "I made sure he got called in for an emergency. He'll be gone for hours. Besides, this is exciting, don't you think? Right here in his bed?" They were laughing. Actually laughing about betraying me in my own home, in my own bed. I should have burst in. Should have confronted them right then and there. But something stopped me. Some instinct told me to wait, to let this play out, to see what else I could learn. I quietly pulled out my phone and started recording audio. I stood there in the hallway, listening to my wife with her lover, documenting every word. "When are you going to leave him?" Marcus asked. "I'm tired of hiding. I want to be with you for real." "Soon," Catherine said. "I'm working on it. I just need to set a few more things up. Make sure I get everything I'm entitled to in the divorce. What about the kid? Joel can have him. I never wanted to be a mother anyway." There it was, recorded. Her own voice, saying she didn't want our son. "And the pharmacy?" Marcus asked. "That's mine. It was my father's building, my business. Joel just works upstairs. He doesn't have any claim to it." "What about all the money you've been, taking? What about it?" "Joel doesn't know, and he never will. By the time we're divorced and I have everything settled, it won't matter. I'll close the pharmacy, sell the business, and we can start fresh somewhere else. Maybe California. Wouldn't that be nice? You, me, sunshine, beaches. What if he finds out? What if someone reports the fraud? They won't. And if they do, I'll say Joel was involved, that he knew about it, that he even helped me. Who do you think they'll believe? A respected physician who works in the same building, who benefits financially from the pharmacy's success, or me, a poor pharmacist just trying to survive?" I felt cold rage wash over me. She'd planned for everything, every contingency. She was going to frame me if she got caught. But now I had her on tape, admitting to fraud, admitting she planned to falsely implicate me, admitting she wanted to abandon our son. I had everything I needed. I backed quietly down the stairs, went outside, and sat in my car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I saved the audio recording, backed it up to the cloud, emailed it to myself and to my lawyer. Then I sat there and cried, not because my marriage was over, I'd accepted that weeks ago, but because the woman I'd loved, the woman I'd trusted with everything, was capable of such cruelty. Not just to me, but to our innocent son. Daniel deserved so much better, and I was going to make sure he got it. After that night, everything changed. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was someone with a mission: protect my son, protect myself, and make sure Catherine faced consequences for what she'd done. But I had to be smart about it. Catherine was cunning, manipulative. If I confronted her directly, she'd find a way to twist things around, to make herself the victim. I needed to catch her completely off guard. My lawyer and I developed a plan. We'd gather every piece of evidence, document every crime, and then lower the boom all at once. No warning, no chance for her to destroy evidence or craft a counter-narrative. But first, we needed to deal with Marcus. I did some digging into his background. Turns out Marcus was 24 years old, worked as a personal trainer at an upscale gym. No criminal record, no red flags, just a young guy who'd gotten involved with a married woman and probably had no idea how deep this deception went. Or maybe he did know. Maybe he was in on the whole thing. I decided to find out. One afternoon, I went to the gym where Marcus worked. I signed up for a personal training session using a fake name. I wanted to see what kind of person he was, face to face. Marcus was friendly, professional. He showed me around the gym, talked about fitness goals, completely unaware that I was the husband of the woman he was sleeping with. "So, what brings you here?" he asked as we started the session. "Just trying to get in shape," I said. "Work's been stressful. Long hours. I'm a doctor." "Oh, yeah? What kind?" "Obigyn. I deliver babies." I watched his face carefully, but there was no reaction. No flicker of recognition, no guilt. Either he was a good actor, or Catherine had never mentioned what I did for a living. "That must be rewarding," he said, "bringing new life into the world." "It is. Though it's hard on family life. Lots of emergency calls in the middle of the night. My wife gets frustrated with me being gone so much." Now I saw it. A tiny muscle twitch in his jaw, a slight shift in his eyes. He knew. He definitely knew. "That's tough," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Relationships require balance." "Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if she's lonely when I'm not around. If she might be. I don't know, seeking companionship elsewhere." Marcus turned away, adjusting some weights. "I wouldn't know anything about that, man. Come on, let's do some bench presses." But I'd seen enough. He knew he was the other man, and he didn't care. I finished the training session, thanked him, and left. I had no intention of going back. I'd learned what I needed to know. The next step was confronting Catherine, but not at home, not where she could control the environment. I needed neutral ground, somewhere public where she couldn't make a scene or destroy evidence. My lawyer suggested a restaurant. "Take her to dinner," he said. "Tell her you want to talk about your marriage, about making things work. Let her think you're clueless. Then, when you have her comfortable, hit her with the evidence. Won't she just deny everything?" "Probably, but it doesn't matter. We're not trying to get a confession. We're trying to gauge her reaction, see what she'll say when confronted. Everything you say to her from now on is potential evidence in divorce court." So that's what I did. I made a reservation at a nice restaurant downtown, expensive, romantic, the kind of place where Catherine would think I was trying to save our marriage. "Catherine," I said that evening, "I'd like to take you to dinner tomorrow night. Just the two of us. I feel like we've been distant lately, and I want to reconnect." She looked surprised. "Oh, okay. What time?" "7. I'll make the reservation." "All right," she said, studying my face, probably trying to figure out if this was a trap. "That sounds nice." The next evening, we sat across from each other at a white tablecloth restaurant, making small talk about work, about Daniel, about nothing important. Catherine seemed nervous, kept checking her phone. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, fine. Just checking messages." "From the pharmacy?" "Mm-hmm." But I knew she was texting Marcus, probably telling him she'd call him later, that she was stuck having dinner with her boring husband. We ordered wine, appetizers, entrees. I let her relax, let her think this was just a normal date night. Then, as we waited for dessert, I pulled out my phone. "Catherine, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." She tensed. "What? Are you having an affair?" Her eyes went wide. "What? No, why would you ask that?" "Because I know about Marcus." The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. Marcus, 24 years old, personal trainer, lives in a condo your sister owns but you pay for. You've been seeing him for over a year." She started to stand up. "I'm not going to sit here and listen to these accusations." "Sit down," I said quietly. "We're not done." Something in my voice made her pause. She sat back down, her hands trembling. "I know about the hotel visits, the credit cards you opened without telling me, the money you've been taking from the pharmacy. All of it, Catherine. I know everything." "You're crazy," she said, but her voice was weak. "You're paranoid. You've been working too hard, and now you're imagining things." I pulled out my phone and played the audio recording. Her voice, Marcus's voice, clear as day, talking about the affair, talking about framing me, talking about abandoning Daniel. Catherine's face went from red to white to green. She looked like she might throw up. "That's illegal," she whispered. You can't record people without their consent. Actually, in this state, I can. One-party consent law. I'm one of the parties present. I was standing in the hallway of my own home. Completely legal. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, what do you want? I want a divorce. I want full custody of Daniel. And I want you out of our lives. You can't have full custody. I'm his mother. You're a woman who committed fraud, who's been stealing from her own business, who abandoned her son emotionally and plans to abandon him physically. Listen to yourself on that recording. I never wanted to be a mother. You think any judge will give you custody after hearing that? Tears started streaming down her face. Real tears, maybe the first genuine emotion she'd shown in months. Joel, please. I made mistakes. I was confused. I was going through something. You were going through something? What about Daniel? What about what he's been going through? Having a mother who doesn't want him. I do want him. I love him. No, you don't. And he deserves better. He deserves a parent who actually cares about him. So here's what's going to happen. I pulled out the divorce papers my lawyer had prepared. You're going to sign these. You're going to agree to my terms, full custody to me. You get supervised visitation only. You pay child support. You're also going to resign from the pharmacy, effective immediately. And you're going to return every penny you stole, either from your own accounts or by liquidating assets. If you do all this, I won't report the fraud to the authorities. And if I don't, then I go to the police, the pharmacy board, the insurance companies, everyone. You'll lose your license. You'll probably go to jail. And you'll still lose custody of Daniel. Your choice. She stared at the papers, her hands shaking. This isn't fair. That pharmacy is mine. My father gave it to me. Your father gave you an opportunity which you squandered by committing fraud. Be grateful I'm giving you a way out that doesn't involve prison. I need time to think. No, you sign now or I walk out of here and straight to the police station. For a long moment, she just sat there. I could see the calculations running through her mind, the attempts to find a way out, a loophole, something. But there was nothing. I had her cornered. Finally, she picked up the pen and signed. I took the papers, put them in my briefcase. You have 30 days to move out. I'll file these papers with the court tomorrow. Don't contact me except through lawyers. And Catherine, stay away from Daniel until the custody arrangement is finalized. If you try to take him or turn him against me, I will bury you. I stood up, left money on the table for the bill, and walked out. Behind me, I could hear her crying. Part of me felt guilty, but a bigger part felt relieved. It was over. Finally over. The divorce process took 6 months. 6 long, difficult months where Catherine fought me on every single point, hired expensive lawyers, tried every trick in the book to get out of the agreement she'd signed. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recorded conversation, the credit card statements, the testimony from Daniel's school and my mother about her neglect, the proof of fraud at the pharmacy. Her lawyers tried to argue that the recording was coerced, that I'd manipulated her into those statements. They tried to paint me as a controlling, paranoid husband who'd driven her into the arms of another man. They even tried to claim I was the one who'd committed the fraud, that I'd set her up. But none of it stuck. The truth was too clear, too documented. In the end, the judge granted me everything I'd asked for. Full custody of Daniel. Catherine would pay child support $500 a month, which was laughable given how much she'd stolen from our family, but at least it was something. She was also ordered to pay restitution to the insurance companies for the fraud, which would take years. The pharmacy closed. Catherine's license was suspended pending investigation. Her father was devastated, his building, his legacy, tainted by his daughter's crimes. Marcus, he disappeared the moment things got messy. Blocked Catherine's number, moved out of the condo she'd been paying for, vanished. Turns out he was only interested in the lifestyle she could provide, not in her as a person. Catherine lost everything. Her career, her family, her reputation. She moved in with her parents, who barely spoke to her. Her social circle abandoned her when the truth came out. I should have felt triumphant. Victorious. She'd gotten what she deserved, right? But mostly I just felt sad. Sad for Daniel, who'd have to grow up knowing his mother hadn't wanted him. Sad for all the wasted years, the broken promises, the betrayed trust. The hardest part was telling Daniel the truth. He was only 6 years old when this all started, too young to understand. But as the divorce dragged on, he started asking questions. Why doesn't mommy live here anymore? Where did mommy go? Did I do something wrong? That last one broke my heart. No, buddy, I told him, pulling him into a hug. You didn't do anything wrong. Mommy and daddy just can't live together anymore. But I'm here. I'm always going to be here. Does mommy still love me? How do you answer that? How do you tell a 6-year-old that his mother is incapable of the kind of love a child needs? Mommy loves you in her own way, I said carefully. But sometimes grown-ups have problems that make it hard for them to show love properly. It's not your fault. It's never your fault. He seemed to accept that, at least for a while. Catherine was granted supervised visitation 2 hours every other Sunday at a family center. For the first few months, she came regularly. She'd sit with Daniel in a playroom while a social worker watched, trying to make conversation, trying to be a mother. But Daniel was distant with her, polite but cold. He'd answer her questions but wouldn't volunteer anything. Wouldn't hug her goodbye. Just a polite, see you later, Mom, and then he'd walk away. It hurt to watch. Not because I wanted them to have a relationship, honestly. At that point, I thought it might be better if Catherine just stayed away. But because I could see the pain in Daniel's eyes, the confusion, the sense of rejection he was feeling. After about 6 months, Catherine stopped coming to the visits. Just stopped showing up. No explanation, no phone call, nothing. Daniel would get ready, put on clean clothes, and then we'd get to the family center and she wouldn't be there. Where's Mom? He'd ask the social worker. I'm sorry, honey, she couldn't make it today. After the third time this happened, Daniel stopped asking. He just accepted that his mother wasn't coming. That was 3 years ago. Daniel's 9 now, almost 10. He's doing well, considering everything. He's on the honor roll at school, plays soccer, has good friends. He sees a therapist once a week, we both do, actually. Working through the trauma, learning to trust again. Catherine pays the child support, usually late, sometimes in small installments. We haven't spoken directly in 2 years. Everything goes through lawyers. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she's trying to rebuild her life. She moved to another state, got a job as a pharmacy tech, not a pharmacist, since her license is still suspended. She's in therapy too, supposedly working through her issues. I don't wish her ill. Honestly, I've moved past the anger, past the betrayal. I just feel empty when I think about her. Like she was a person I used to know a long time ago in another life. The building where our practices used to be, I moved my office last year. Too many memories, too much history. I'm in a new space now with a fresh start. Daniel asks about his mother sometimes. Not often, but occasionally. Do you think Mom will ever want to see me again? I don't know, buddy. Maybe someday. But even if she doesn't, it doesn't mean anything about you. You're an amazing kid. Smart, kind, brave. Any parent would be lucky to have you. The fact that she can't see that, that's her problem, not yours. But why? Why doesn't she want me? It's the question every child of abandonment asks. The question that has no good answer. Some people aren't capable of being parents, I tell him gently. It's not about you. It's about something broken inside them, something they can't fix. Your mother has her own issues, her own problems. She made choices that hurt you, hurt us. But those were her choices. They don't define who you are. Will I be like her when I grow up? No, I say firmly. You won't. Because you're already more caring, more thoughtful than she ever was. You have empathy. You have a good heart. Those things don't come from her, they come from you. From who you choose to be. He seems satisfied with that answer, at least for now. Last month, something happened that I want to share, because it shows how far we've come. Daniel's school was having a bring your parent to school day. Most kids brought their moms, but Daniel asked me to come. I took the afternoon off, went to his classroom, helped with art projects and reading time. At the end of the day, one of the other mothers came up to me. You're Daniel's dad, right? The single father? Yes, I said, bracing myself. I was used to judgment, pity, the uncomfortable questions, but she smiled. I just wanted to tell you, you're doing an amazing job. Daniel is such a great kid. Polite, helpful, always including others. You should be proud. Thank you, I said, feeling a lump in my throat. That means a lot. My husband and I are divorced too, she continued. It's hard raising kids alone. But you're proving it can be done. You're giving Daniel everything he needs: love, stability, attention. That's what matters. After she walked away, Daniel tugged on my sleeve. Dad, are you crying? No, buddy, I said, wiping my eyes. Just allergies. He grinned. Sure, Dad. Allergies. We walked to the car together, his small hand in mine, and I thought about how far we'd come. From that terrible night when I stood in the hallway listening to my wife betray me, to this moment, me and my son building a life together. It hasn't been easy. There have been hard days, lonely nights, moments when I wondered if I was doing enough, being enough for Daniel. But then I see him smile. I hear him laugh. I watch him play with his friends, confident and happy. And I know we're going to be okay. The betrayal Catherine committed, the affairs, the fraud, the abandonment of our son, it could have destroyed us. For a while I thought it would. I thought the pain would be too much, the damage too deep. But we survived. More than survived, we thrived. And that's what I want people to take away from my story. If you're going through something similar, if you've discovered your spouse's betrayal, if you're facing divorce, if you're wondering how you'll protect your children from the fallout, know this: you can survive it. It won't be easy. It'll hurt like hell. There will be days when you want to give up. But if you focus on what matters, your children, your own well-being, building a better future, you can come through it stronger. Daniel and I have a saying now. When things get hard, when he's struggling with something or I'm having a difficult day, we remind each other, we're the Heart Team. Heart is our last name. Heart Team always sticks together. Heart Team never gives up. It's simple, maybe even corny, but it works for us. It reminds us that we have each other, that we're not alone, that we're building something good and strong and lasting. Last week I met someone, a woman at a medical conference. She's a pediatrician, smart and kind, with a 10-year-old daughter. We talked for hours, exchanged numbers, made plans to have coffee when we're both back in town. I don't know if it'll become something more. Honestly, I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. The betrayal Catherine put me through left scars. Trust doesn't come easily anymore. But I'm open to the possibility. Open to the idea that not everyone will hurt you. That not every relationship ends in betrayal. Daniel asked me about her. Is she your girlfriend, Dad? No, buddy. Just a friend. But maybe someday when the time is right, I might date again. Would that be okay with you? He thought about it for a moment. Will she be nice to me? If I ever date someone seriously, she'll be someone who thinks you're as awesome as I do. That's non-negotiable. He smiled. Okay then, I guess that would be okay. And that's where we are now. Moving forward, building a new life, healing from the past but not letting it define our future. Catherine tried to destroy us. She lied, cheated, stole, and abandoned her own child. She did everything she could to serve her own selfish desires, with no regard for the people she hurt. But she didn't win. We did, because we're still here, still standing, still loving each other, still believing that tomorrow can be better than today. And that's the ultimate victory.